Now we will go on to the next standard, which is income taxes. Ind AS 12. Moving on to the next standard, Ind AS 12, income taxes. I hope everybody is well versed with the concept of deferred taxes, which is already used under the Indian GAAP. So we had a standard for deferred taxes under the Indian GAAP. So that standard had a basic, I mean, there is a basic logic about deferred taxes. Your accounting profit, or the way you determine the accounting profit, is different than the way you determine the tax profit. So if today I have a profit of 100 crores in my books, not necessarily exactly on 100 crores I'll pay the income tax. Under income tax, the method of deduction, the method of charging the income for tax, these are different methods. Certain deduction might be available today, but might not be available under income tax. Certain additional deductions might be given under income tax, which you don't record in the books of accounts. So such varied concepts are there for the purpose of income tax and accounting books. Now, if you want to match, today I give a profit of 100 crores, and if I'm not paying any taxes, I'm having a zero tax. Is it possible? And tomorrow I incur a profit of only 50 crores, but I'm paying a heavy tax because certain incomes was chargeable at a later point in time. There was a different point, there was different timing concept between the two, between the accounting and the income taxes. So what to do in that case? How will you match the tax expenditure with the timing, or how will you match the tax expenditure with the profit that is appearing in your books of accounts? So on account of such concept itself, the deferred taxes was brought in to eliminate this timing difference between the time at which income is chargeable to tax, or between the time at which expenditure is deductible under the income tax. So in your books of accounts, your total tax, the total tax that is debited to P&L is nothing but the current tax plus the deferred tax. This is the total income tax expenditure that is debited to the books of accounts. So in summary, what is the difference between the current tax and the deferred tax? The current tax is the actual tax that you pay to the government authorities, actual provision for tax that is payable to the government authorities, and deferred tax is not an actual payment, it is not an actual cash outflow, it is just for the purpose of accounting matching. So it is just for the purpose of accounting matching. The basis of computing the current tax is the taxable profits and as per the applicable income tax laws. And the basis of computing the deferred taxes, you compute the temporary deductible differences or temporary chargeable differences. We will discuss this concept in detail. So it is as good as you compute whether it is a deferred tax asset or it is a deferred tax liability. The current tax is paid for the current periods. It is what, suppose if I am paying the tax for 1819 or 1920, it is the year for which you are paying the tax. Whereas deferred tax is for the future tax deductions or for the future tax chargeability of income that will arise. So deferred tax is for the future periods and current taxes for your current period. This is just an overview of what are current taxes and what are deferred taxes. So under Ind AS 12, the concept of computing a deferred tax is a bit different, or the language used in the standard is a bit different. I won't say that I mean it is completely different from Indian GAAP, but under Indian GAAP, if you might remember, it was not strictly given under the standard, but practically when you apply the deferred tax, there were two methods of computing the deferred tax. First method is what you use, what certain people used to do. Compare the P&L items and compare it with the tax P&L. So compare your accounting P&L with the tax P&L and compute the amount of deferred tax. This was one method which was followed by certain, the one method of computing the deferred tax. So for example, today my expenditure appearing in my accounting P&L is 100, but it is not allowed presently under income tax. It will be allowed on actual payment basis. That is why I used to compare the accounting P&L of rupees 100, expenditure of rupees 100 with the tax P&L. There is no deduction available for this expense, and accordingly there is a deferred tax. But in certain cases or certain second method of computing the deferred tax was the balance sheet approach. This was, this practically we used to use even when we were following the Indian GAAP. The amount or the result of the both the methods is obviously the same, but it is just a way of calculating deferred tax. Second approach was comparing the balance sheet amounts. If the closing amount of property, plant and equipment of fixed assets is 100 rupees under accounting books and the same is 80 rupees under the income tax books, then the difference of 20 is the deferred tax. So some used to compare the WDV of the assets, some used to compare the depreciation of the assets. These were the two ways in which you used to compute the deferred tax. Under Ind AS 12, the language used under the standard is a balance sheet approach. Due to this balance sheet approach, they have also given us certain additional clarifications, due to which certain additional transactions which were never coming up into the purview of deferred tax previously also fall into the purview of deferred tax now under the Ind AS 12 regime. So these transactions are same, there is no new logic applied, but due to the explanation or due to the manner of the explanation given, certain further transactions also get covered under the deferred tax. So under this standard, they use the concept of balance sheet approach for the purpose of computing deferred tax. So the first step that you do is you compute the tax base of the asset and you compute the tax base of the liability. This is nothing. It is similar under how you used to do under your Indian GAAP. We'll see by example. Don't get confused by the wording used. Once you identify the tax base of the asset and the tax base of the liability, you compute what is the temporary difference. That is the second step. Once you compute the temporary difference, you determine whether an exemption applies. So exemption is nothing but just a kind of a permanent difference. The permanent difference is what we used to have under the Indian GAAP. So determine whether the exemption applies and then you compute the deferred tax using the substantively enacted rate. And then you recognize the deferred tax in the books of accounts. And then what they have given under the standard is where do you recognize this deferred tax? Whether you recognize it in P&L or you recognize it in OCI or equity. We'll discuss examples for everything. Moving ahead. So this all we discussed. Tax rule is different than accounting rule. So the first step is you compute the accounting base of the asset. Accounting base of the asset and liability is nothing but how it is appearing in your balance sheet. So accounting base, you don't have to newly compute it. It is nothing but how it is appearing in your balance sheet. The basis of computing the tax base of the asset and the tax base of the liability is what is given ahead. How to compute a tax base of the asset? Let's first read what is technically given under the standard and let's then understand by way of an example. Example would be very easy to understand. So tax base of an asset is amount that is deductible when the asset is recovered. So whenever the asset is recovered, what is the amount deductible? If the economic benefits are not taxable, then tax base is equal to the carrying amount. So forget this technical definition used by the standard. Even I don't use this technical definition. Let's go by an example. Very simple. If I have a property, plant and equipment and which was costing rupees 1 lakh. It was costing rupees 1 lakh and by accounting the depreciation, the WDV of that property, plant and equipment is 90,000. So what is accounting base? Accounting base is 90,000. In tax books, I have I have greater rate of deduction or greater rate of depreciation due to which my tax WDV is 70,000. So my tax base is 70,000. Whatever is the WDV in my tax books is my tax base. So my tax WDV is 70,000. Let's go by the definition. So by logic, you would also understand the tax base is 70,000. Let's go by the definition. What is the tax base of the asset? Amount deductible when the asset is recovered. So in the future years, how much is the depreciation that is allowed for you as a deduction? It is 70,000. So if you go by the definition also, the answer is same. Amount that is deductible when the asset is recovered. The tax base of the asset is 70,000 because you will get a deduction of 70,000 as a depreciation in the future years. There is no disallowance or there is no portion of the asset that is not allowed as deduction. So that is the tax base of the asset. So this is how you determine what is the tax base of the asset. We'll go with another example also. For example, if there is interest receivable. If there is interest receivable in your books of accounts, The amount of that interest receivable is rupees 1 lakh. I hope you can see my screen also. The amount that is appearing in my books of accounts is 1 lakh. So my accounting base is 1 lakh, which is the interest receivable. Now, even under accounting, I have charged the 1 lakh, charged 1 lakh in my profit and loss. This is income what I have shown in my books. Even in tax books, the income is already offered for tax. So income is already offered for tax. Interest receivable is already offered for tax. So if economic benefits are not taxable when the asset is recovered, tax base is equal to the carrying amount. So what is my tax base? 1 lakh itself. So logically, don't go by the definition. If even in my accounting books the income is offered for tax, and even in my tax books the income is offered for tax, should logically a deferred tax arise? Obviously no. So logically also tax base has to be equal to the accounting base. So that is why the tax base would be the exact amount what is appearing as the accounting base, and there won't be any deferred tax. So deferred tax, or the difference between accounting base and the tax base is zero. So go by the plain vanilla logics and this definition. Don't try to memorize this definition. He will go by the definition and then determine what is the tax base and accounting base. Even logically also you can decide what is a tax base and what is a accounting base. Then moving ahead, what is a example we have already discussed, the machinery and interest receivable. So this was the same example what I did show you in the Excel. Moving ahead, how to calculate the tax base of a liability. We are already clear with the accounting base. Accounting base of a liability is nothing but how the liability appears in the books of accounts. At whatever amount it appears in the books of accounts, that is the accounting base of the liability. So just read the technical definition. I'll again show it by way of an example. An example is better than the definition. So tax base of a liability is carrying amount less any amount that will be deductible for tax purposes in future. Let's go with an example. Suppose there are accrued expenses in my books of accounts. Accrued expenses are of 10,000 rupees. So these expenses are not paid. That is why it is appearing in my balance sheet as liability. Under tax norms, the expenditure is deductible on actual payment basis. So unless you pay the expenditure, unless you pay the amount, it is not deductible in the tax books. So go by just read the definition again. So what is the definition? Carrying amount less any amount that will be deductible for tax purposes in future. So what will be the amount that will be deductible in future? The 10,000 amount. So my carrying value is 10,000. Less amount that is deductible in future is 10,000. So my tax base is 0. Go by the normal logics. If today I have debited certain amount in my P&L, it has been debited as an expenditure, but it is not allowed for the tax purposes, should a deferred tax arise or not? Obviously a deferred tax should arise. So logically also there should be a difference between the tax base and the accounting base. So logically also the tax base of this item is 0 and there is a difference which is arised is 10,000. So as I am saying again and again, go by the normal logics. Even if you don't understand this definition, it is all right. So tax base of a deferred income is its carrying amount less revenue that is not taxable in future. So if you have a deferred income in your books of accounts, so if you have a deferred income, today I have a deferred income in my books of accounts of rupees 10,000. Deferred income, what does it mean by deferred income? Income which is deferred in the future years. Today I have already received the amount, but the income is not offered in my P&L and it is deferred for the future years. What is the tax base of such liability? It is its carrying amount less revenue that is not chargeable in future. So is it such revenue which is not chargeable in future? If the revenue is also taxable as and when you debit it to P&L, as and when you credit to the P&L, then in future years also it is not taxable in the tax books. So even for the tax purposes, the tax base will be 10,000 and the difference will be 0 for the purpose of deferred revenue. If it was other way around, under income tax, the revenue is chargeable on receipt basis. As soon as you receive the revenue, irrespective of whatever you do under accounting, you do it as a deferred income, you do it as a deferred revenue, or you credit entire amount in the P&L, we charge the amount on the receipt basis. Then what is the tax base? Will any revenue be again chargeable in future? Today I have offered the revenue for tax because I have received it. I have offered the revenue for tax on a receipt basis. So will the tax authorities again charge it for revenue? No, obviously no. So less revenue not taxable in future. So 10,000 is not taxable in future. So the tax base is 0, and accordingly there is a difference which is arising, which is a deferred tax. So again, I'm saying go by the plain vanilla logics. If a particular income is offered for tax in tax books and it is not offered for tax in the accounting books, so in that case, deferred tax should arise. And even by going through the technical definition also, the deferred tax is arising. So the plain vanilla logics are more better than the technical definition, because you have to memorize where it is less, where it is not taxable in future. So the normal logics are more better. Moving ahead, once you determine what is the tax base of an asset and you determine what is the tax base of a liability, you will compare it with the accounting basis. So temporary difference would arise if there is a difference between the tax base and the accounting base. Now you will decide whether it is a DTL or DTA. Here also they have used complex language in the standard. This standard is logical, it is very simple, but the language used is very complex. So here the nomenclature used by the standard is taxable temporary difference. That is nothing but DTL, what we used to call under Indian GAAP. So taxable temporary difference or deductible temporary difference. Don't go by the formula of if accounting base is greater than tax base, then DTL, accounting base is lesser than tax base, then DTA. Don't go by such plus minus formulas. If in future years you're going to pay higher amount of tax, then it is a taxable temporary difference. And if in future years you're going to pay lesser amount of tax, then it is a deductible temporary difference. It is a DTA and it is a DTL. So go by the same logic as whether additional tax is going to be paid or whether lesser amount of tax shall be paid or in the future years. So if lesser is going to be paid, then DTA. If additional is going to be paid, then DTL. I hope everybody is understanding, and if you have any queries, please note it down. We'll discuss it at the end point in time. We'll come back to these exemptions later on. It will confuse you all. So we'll come back to these exemptions later on, and first we will discuss the simpler part of the standard. Once you have computed what is the deferred, what is the amount of temporary difference, then you measure the amount of deferred tax. The deferred tax is measured at an enacted or a substantively enacted rate. So in our cases, whenever the budget is announced in February or January, at that point in time, whatever is the revised income tax rates for the corporates, that rate you will use for the purpose of computing the deferred tax. So the computation has to be made on a substantively enacted rate, and deferred taxes are never discounted. So don't assume that everything under Ind AS is discounted, and since deferred tax is also a long-term item, that also has to be discounted. So deferred taxes are never discounted. Moving ahead, how do you recognize a deferred tax? Here there is a difference compared with Indian GAAP. Deferred tax liabilities are recognized in full. Always, in any standard you go, deferred tax liabilities are always recognized in full. Whereas deferred tax assets are recognized to the extent it is probable that future taxable profits will be available, which available to deduct this temporary difference. Now the word used over here is probable, whereas the word used under Indian GAAP was you have a virtual certainty. There is a big difference over here. Probable means more than 50%. Even if there is a more likely chance that the future profits will be available against which this DTA can be subsumed, then you can recognize the DTA. Under Indian GAAP, you had a very much strict criteria of virtual certainty for the purpose of deferred tax on losses and the carried forward depreciation. So at that point in time under Indian GAAP, you required management to give the exact forecast. You required the contracts on hand for the purpose of recognizing the DTA on the losses and the accumulated depreciation. Under Ind AS, you don't have any such bifurcation. On any type of DTA, you can recognize a DTA if you have a probability that future profits will be available. So virtual certainty is as good as as good as a 95% certainty that you require. So as a proof, as an auditor, you used to require the firm contracts on hand that future profits will be available as a supporting for the purpose of recognition of deferred tax assets. That is why many companies used to not recognize the DTA on the losses unless there is a virtual certainty. Over here, it is probable, and under India's, there might be cases where previously under Indian GAAP, you have not recognized the DTA, and now you have recognized the DTA considering this new definition or new threshold of probable given under this standard. Moving ahead, where to recognize the deferred tax? If the base item is appearing in the P&L, the deferred tax will also go in the P&L. If the base item is recognized in OCI, the deferred tax is also recognized in OCI. P&L is very simple. That is what you used to do in the initial years also. So in P&L, there was an item as deferred tax. But what about this OCI? I'll give you an example. For example, the gains on the fair value of investments have to be routed through OCI. This example I'm covering from day one. So the gains on the investments which are long-term in nature have to be routed through OCI. Obviously, this is an option. We'll cover this in detail in financial instruments, but I'm just covering as an example. So the gains are to be routed through OCI. Now, since you have a gain on the fair valuation of investments, you do not pay tax on a fair value basis. Under income tax, you pay tax on the actual receipt or actual realization of profit itself. So that is why there will be a timing difference. In your books of accounts, if the cost of investment is 100, you would have fair valued at 120. Correct? And the gain of rupees 20 has been routed through OCI. It is appearing in OCI. Whereas in the income tax books, you have never offered this 20 rupees for the purpose of tax, and you have never offered this 20 rupees for the purpose of tax, and that is why there is a timing difference. So if there's a timing difference, you will have to recognize the deferred tax liability. Now, where will this liability be recognized? Since the gain has been routed through OCI, even the deferred tax will also be routed through OCI, and the line item will be gain on fair valuation of investments 20, deferred tax on above, say at the rate 10% will be 2 crores. So 20 will be the gain item, 2 crores of deferred tax liability will be recognized, and which will be routed through OCI. So if the base item is in OCI, the deferred tax will also be routed through OCI. If the base item has been credited to equity, the deferred tax will also be credited to the equity. The equity example will come in financial instruments. Now we cannot discuss unless financial instruments is over, but I hope at least OCI example is clear. Wherever is the base item, over there the deferred taxes should be recognized. I'll also show you any particular annual report. I guess on the day one also many participants were confused about how does OCI look. So quickly I'll show you an annual report so that you are more clear about how does OCI looks. Because I had various queries on the OCI component. So I'll just quickly show you so that you have clear understanding over it. I hope you can see my screen. I've just opened the annual report of Praj Industries Limited. We'll just see the P&L format and how does OCI look, so it is very much clear for you. So can you see the profit and loss on your screen? So if you can see the profit and loss, at the initial stages, normal it is income, revenue from operations, expenses, you have profit before taxes, you have tax expenditure, you have profit for the year. Till here, everything is same, there is no change. But after that, There is other comprehensive income. It is statement below the statement of profit and loss. In other comprehensive income, they have specified certain items which will be routed through other comprehensive income. You don't have choice. There are certain listed items. Only these items should be routed through the other comprehensive income. One of that item is remeasurement of defined benefit plan. So it is nothing but the actual gain or loss on the defined benefit plan. So any kind of actual gain or loss on a defined benefit plan has to be routed through the other comprehensive income. So over here, the Praj Industries Limited has disclosed this item in OCI. So there was a gain of 6.83 million. Alright, it is a gain appearing in OCI. Income tax effect. There is a deferred tax created on the gratuity obligation. Correct? You create a deferred tax because under income tax it is deductible on payment basis, whereas you debit the P&L. That is why there is a deferred tax which arises. So even the deferred tax on this particular item will be recognized in the other comprehensive income itself. So you can see the item of income tax effect. This is nothing but the deferred tax, which is also recognized in the other comprehensive income. So net is 4.44 million, and the total comprehensive income is nothing but the profit after tax plus the other comprehensive income is equal to the total comprehensive income. And your EPS is never computed on total comprehensive income. EPS is always computed on the profit for the year. So as I said, the logic for OCI was to route such kind of items which should not make your P&L more volatile. It should not impact your normal P&L. That is why even the EPS is also computed on the profit for the year, and the components of OCI or the amount recognized in OCI is never considered for the purpose of computing the EPS. I hope it has given a bit more fair idea for you, for the people who didn't understand the OCI concept on day one. If you still have further queries, we can discuss it in person. Moving ahead, special considerations. Now pay full attention over here, because till now whatever we discussed was similar as to what is there under Indian GAAP, bearing very few changes. But now the special considerations are such cases which were never there under Indian GAAP. So let's discuss with the first concept of deferred tax arising in books and reversing in books. Let's understand this difference. Now, if you might have heard in this 2-3 sessions, there is a lot of discounting and unwinding of discount which is happening under this Ind AS regime. So there's a lot of discounting and unwinding happening. Under income tax, never such kind of accounting entries will be deductible or chargeable to tax. You recognize something as finance cost, these expenditures are not deductible under income tax. So what do? So let's take an example. For example, as we had discussed, there is a provision of rupees 10,000. If there is a provision of rupees 10,000, assume for a time being this is never allowed in tax. Even on payment basis, on whatever basis, this is not allowed in tax. This is the assumption what you have to take for a time being. If it is never allowed in tax, what you used to do under Indian GAAP? If a particular item is never deductible in tax purposes, it was a permanent difference and no deferred tax was ever recognized on that particular item. So this is to fall under the permanent difference criteria. But now under Ind AS, any provisions which are long-term in nature has to be discounted to the present value. So this provision was discounted using the risk-free rate of return, and the present value of the provision is 7,100. Now, today on day one, the provision appearing in your books of accounts is 7,100. This is never deductible in tax purposes, so comparison with tax is not required also. But understand, today the provision is appearing at 7,100, correct? Over a period, you will debit the finance cost, correct? You are going to debit the finance cost over the period. So this is the amount, or this is the income. Today it is arising in the books, and today you're getting an income of 2,900, which is the difference between the provisions. So today the income is arising of 2,800. Over a period, this 2,800 you will recognize as a finance expenditure. So what does it mean? Today you are showing an income of 2,800, and over a period you will again debit this and neutralize this income by finance cost. So this is what income arising in the books, which will get nullified by finance cost, which will be debited to P&L in the future years. So this is nothing but on these components also. Today you're recognizing an income in your books. So since you're recognizing an income in the books, you should recognize a DTL on day one. Just understand the complete example first. Okay, as and when this income will get reversed, you will recognize DTA in your books to match the income and expenditure over the period. This is such kind of deferred tax which will arise in the books and reverse in the books. There is no cognizance or no reference to the income taxes. We'll also discuss the further examples also, then you'll understand how only within the books you're recognizing the deferred tax. So since you recognize the gain of today, you will recognize a detail on such component. And in the further years, as and when you will recognize the finance cost, at that point in time, you will recognize the DTA on such items. We'll discuss the next example. Now, if you are aware about the consolidated financial statements, today I am the holding company. Holding company is selling certain goods to the subsidiary company. So I'm selling certain goods to the company, to the subsidiary company. The cost of such goods is 1,000 rupees to me. I am selling that goods to the subsidiary company at rupees 1,500. Okay, 500 is my own margin. But the subsidiary has not yet sold the goods to the third party in the market. So in my consolidated financial statements, this transaction or the unrealized portion on the inventory will be reversed. So for the group as a whole, the 500 rupees of income which has arisen from the sale of the holding company to the subsidiary company is not really an income. It is income within the group itself. So that is why you will realize or you will reverse this unrealized profit on inventory. So this is the adjustment that you make on the consolidated financial statements. This adjustment was there in the Indian GAAP also, no change. In any GAAP, you reverse the unrealized profits in the consolidated financial statements. Now let's understand the deferred tax principles. So for the purpose of deferred tax, what are the principles? Now tell me, when the subsidiary or when the holding company sold the goods to the subsidiary company costing rupees 1,000 at rupees 1,500, the holding company has paid tax on rupees 500. So whatever the income the holding company has earned, the holding company has paid the tax on that in their taxable P&L. Am I correct? If in the consolidated financial statements, if you are reversing this income, so you have reversed the income in the CFS. So in CFS, what is the scenario? There is no income, but there is a tax. Since you have paid that current tax, since the holding company has paid that current tax, there is no income, but there is a current tax. Is the matching concept getting fulfilled? No, obviously it is not getting fulfilled. In CFS, you don't have the income, but you have a current tax. So that is why on this unrealized profit, you recognize a deferred tax asset. You recognize a deductible temporary difference on this item. So what is that the case? You recognize a DTA only in the consolidated financial statements. So there is no impact. There is no cognizance of comparing this with the tax P&L or nothing. You don't pay tax as per CFS. You pay tax as per standalone financial statements. But what is this? What is this scenario? This transaction is arising in the books. Today you don't have the income, but you have paid the current tax on that. In the next year, what will happen? In the year 2, when the subsidiary will sell the goods. When the subsidiary will sell the goods, you will realize or you will realize the profit in the CFS. Whatever profit even the holding company had made of rupees 500 that you will realize in CFS, you will recognize in CFS. So now in year 2, what is the scenario in CFS? In year 2, there is an income in CFS, but holding company has already paid the tax in last year. Again, in current year, nobody is going to pay tax on this rupees 500. So there is income, but there is no tax. So this was the scenario what was happening under the Indian GAAP. So under Ind AS, even on such transaction, you will recognize a deferred tax. In year 1, you will recognize DTA. Whereas in year 2 or whenever the subsidiary will sell that goods, in that year you will reverse this DTA. In short, you will recognize the expenditure. Please note, to understand these concepts, your Indian GAAP deferred tax concepts should be very clear. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to understand these concepts. So this is the case that you recognize DTA in year 1 when you reverse the unrealized profit, and as soon as you recognize this unrealized profit, you will reverse this DTA, and there would be a matching concept. So this is again a second example of deferred tax which is arising in the books of accounts and which is getting reversed in the books of accounts. There is no concept of matching it with what is happening under the income tax. I hope it is clear to you all. Now moving on to the next concept. For example, if you are holding company in India, which is taxable at tax rate of rupees 25 or 25%, your subsidiary is a US subsidiary where the tax rate is, for example, it is 35%. At what rate will you recognize a deferred tax? When you recognize a deferred tax on this unrealized profit, what will be the tax rate that you will use? The tax rate should be the rate at which the subsidiary is going to pay the tax. The rate at which the subsidiary is going to pay the tax should be the tax rate used for the purpose of computing this deferred tax. What is the logic over this? And the logic over this is the subsidiary is gonna, whenever the subsidiary is gonna make the transaction, at that point in time you're gonna recognize the entire income. So that is why the subsidiary's deferred tax rate, subsidiary's income tax rate will be used for the purpose of computing the deferred tax. Moving ahead to another example. I hope these two examples are clear. I agree it is a bit difficult or a bit difficult concept to digest, but please understand it step by step. The third concept, investment in subsidiaries, associates and joint ventures. Understand just as a concept and we'll understand it in detail with what the standard says. For example, today I have made an investment in the holding company has made an investment in a 100% subsidiary company of rupees 1000. Okay, and the holding company has made an investment of rupees 1000. Over the years, subsidiary company has made a profit of rupees 500. In your consolidated financial statements, your total reserves and surplus are appearing as 1500. Okay, your total reserves and surplus of the subsidiary is appearing at 1500, or as good as your investment value is appearing at 1500. So investment value is what? The cost of the investment plus the gains or plus the profits made by the subsidiary. Now tell me, are these realized profits for you? Whenever the subsidiary is going to declare a dividend or whatever it will say, it will be actual cash profits for you. But as on today, are they realized profits for you? Do you have that profits in hand? No. So the tax base of this investment is 1000 itself in your tax books. But whereas in the accounting books, the value of this investment is 1500. There is again a difference which is arising between the accounting books and the tax books. So what does it mean? As good as in your books of accounts, when you show your CFS or when you show your investment value at 1500, what does it mean? Your books of value is showing that value as 1500. You have a value of investment of 1500. Whereas in tax books, you are still having a value of 1000 only. So over here also there is a deferred tax liability which is getting arised. On these gains, as and when you make the gain, as and when the subsidiary makes the gain and you consolidate it in your CFS, there is a liability which is getting arised, because as soon as you're making the CFS, it is as good as in your accounting books, it is your own profit. But has the subsidiary declared a dividend, or have you sold a subsidiary and realized that profit? No, then how are you showing the value as 1500? There is a difference which is arising. Okay, but what to do of this difference? The standard says that if in such cases, the standard has specifically mentioned these cases, you do not recognize the DTL if you're controlling the timing of reversal. If you're controlling the timing of reversal, then you do not recognize the DTL. This is the first condition. And the second condition is that the probability of the deferred tax, the probability of the temporary difference getting reversed is not in the foreseeable future. In the foreseeable future, it is not probable that the temporary difference will get reversed. Let's see in the example. So in this cases, the standard is also agreeing that the detail is getting arised, but the standard has given an exemption. If you're controlling the timing of reversal, what do you mean by control? If it is your subsidiary, if you're controlling the timing of reversal, and the second case is probability that the temporary differences will reverse in the foreseeable future is not there. You don't have any probability that the difference will reverse in the foreseeable future. What does it mean? There is no probability that you will sell off the subsidiary in the near future, or there is no probability that the subsidiary will declare dividends in the near future. How are you going to realize? Either by dividend or by sale of subsidiary. So the probability that subsidiary will either declare a dividend or you are going to sell off the subsidiary is not there. If these two conditions are getting satisfied, then you are allowed to not recognize this detail in your books of accounts. So this is a higher level concept. Just understand it step by step. If both these conditions are getting satisfied, then the deferred tax liability is not to be recognized. Let's go on to the further cases. Then when will the detail be recognized? For example, in your board resolution, the board has decided that in the next year, the board is gonna disinvest from this subsidiary company. So there are talks going on in the companies, or there are certain strategic decisions what are happening in the company that the company is going to reduce investment from the subsidiary company. So what is the case? In the near future, the differences are going to getting realized. In the near future, you're going to sell off this subsidiary. So in that case, this exemption is not available and you have to recognize the detail. So these amounts are huge. You see, if a company like Tata Motors, it has hundreds of subsidiaries, every subsidiary is gaining certain profit. And if today, if Tata Motors decides that I want to sell off a particular subsidiary, imagine the amount of detail that will be debited in the consolidated financial statements of Tata Motors due to this provision. And always remember, this is all about CFS, what we are talking. No adjustment will come in the standalone financial statements because the consolidation is not happening in the standalone financial statements. Second example, here we discuss the example of a subsidiary. What if it is an associate? I have an investment value of 1,000. My associate has earned a profit of 200, which is my share. I mean, my part of the profit is 200. So what is the value of investment appearing in CFS? It is 1,200. What is appearing as value? Detail is there. Detail is arising in this case. Now, whether to recognize this detail or not to recognize. What are the two conditions? Am I controlling the timing of reversal? What does control mean? More than 50% shareholding. It is my associate. I have only 20% shareholding. Am I controlling the timing of reversal? No, I am not controlling the timing of reversal. The first condition itself is not getting satisfied, and accordingly, I have to recognize detail in my consolidated financial statements on the investment value on the amount of rupees 200. So these are the classic cases which get covered in Ind AS, which were never getting covered under your Indian GAAP scenarios. Second case, what if these are losses? What if these are loss scenarios? What if the associate made a loss of rupees 200 due to which my investment value reduced to 800 rupees? The standard says, the standard also agrees that there is a scenario where DTA has arisen. But what to do? Whether to recognize this DTA or not to recognize this DTA. For this also standard has two conditions. You recognize DTA only if, please understand the difference. Previous case was do not recognize the detail if these two conditions are getting satisfied. And these conditions are recognize DTA only if taxable profits are available against which this temporary difference can be used. So in future, there will be certain taxable profits against which this DTA will be set off. And the probability that the temporary difference will reverse in the near future is foreseeable. There is a foreseeable probability that this temporary difference will reverse in the near future. Again, let's understand by way of an example. Now, in case of investment in associates, joint ventures, there is always a capital gain what arises as per the income tax. So there should be a probability that for this losses, there should be a probability that capital gains would arise in the near future to set off this capital losses. If there is no probability that such capital gains will arise in the future, then you do not recognize a DTA. This is a standard condition for any kind of DTA. Previously also we read this condition. There should be a probability that the gains should be there to set off this deferred tax asset, to set off these losses. There should be gains in the future. And the second condition is probability that this temporary difference should be will be reversed in the near future. What does it mean? You will recognize DTA only if in the near future you're going to sell off this associate. If in the near future you're not going to sell off this associate, you will not recognize the DTA. I hope I'm clear on these two examples. Both the DTL as well as DTA has the condition of the temporary differences should reverse in the near future. So you go on to the recognition of this deferred tax only if in the near future either you're gonna sell off the subsidiary or subsidiary is gonna pay any kind of dividend for the purpose of gains. So these are the cases which are there in the Ind AS which are not there under the Indian GAAP. One more case, deferred tax on fair valuation in a business combination. These are all complex cases, please try to understand. In business combination, as per Ind AS 103, which we are going to cover in detailed manner tomorrow, but let's understand the principle. In Ind AS 103, there is a mandatory requirement that whenever you're doing a business accounting, business combination accounting, the assets and liabilities have to be acquired at fair value. So there is no concept of book value when you're doing the merger accounting or called as business combination accounting in the new standards. So whenever you're accounting for the business combinations, each assets and liabilities acquired have to be recognized at fair value in the books of the acquirer. So, for example, if my land is at 100, appearing in the book value of the acquiring company, in that cases the book value is 100 rupees, correct? I am acquiring that company, so I'll fair value the assets and liabilities acquired. So suppose the fair value of the land is rupees 120. So in short, the fair value is rupees 120 at which I have accounted in my books of accounts. So directly the land is appearing at 120 in your books. So what will happen of this 20 rupees gain? You will have to recognize a deferred tax liability on this 20 rupees gain. Okay, so even in business combination accounting, each asset and liability have to be recognized at fair value. So whatever is the fair value difference on each such component, there will be a deferred tax liability or there will be a deferred tax asset. Okay, I hope it is clear. Why to do the fair value accounting, how to do it, that we'll discuss in detail tomorrow. But please understand the standard concept that on each fair value component, there will be a DTL or a DTA. I understand the logic behind it. Whenever the company which was getting acquired, suppose X company, I'm acquiring the company X. Company would have recognized the deferred tax asset or liability on its book value, right? So whatever was the book value of X, on that component X had recognized asset or liability. When I'm acquiring that company, I'm fair valuing it, and that fair value is becoming my value. So that gain should also be accounted as a deferred tax asset or a liability. Okay, I hope all these scenarios are clear. Even if it is not clear on day one, you just go through all these examples in detailed manner, you will understand it better. Because in the first instance, all these cases are new. It might be difficult to digest, but it is easier to understand in the as and when you read it and as and when you practically apply it. Even if you practically apply even one scenario, the concept of this deferred tax will be more clear to you. Okay. Now we'll understand quickly the presentation and the disclosures. The presentation is similar to what was there under the Indian GAAP scenarios. You have to, the deferred tax asset or liabilities, it should mandatorily be a non-current portion. You cannot say that whatever will reverse in the year one, I will recognize it as a current and whatever rest it is non-current. No. Every deferred tax asset or liability is mandatorily a non-current component. Second, Offsetting of DTA or DTL will be allowed only if you have the legal rights to offset. So for example, in short, within your own company, DTA and DTL can be offset. But understand, if it is in a consolidated financial statements, me as a holding company, for me DTL has arose. The subsidiary, in subsidiaries books, there is net DTA. You cannot set off these two items because you are a separate tax entity. The subsidiary is a separate taxable entity, and you don't have a legally enforceable right to set off this deferred tax asset and a deferred tax liability. Third, and the classic disclosure required under Ind AS is a tax rate reconciliation. So in your notes to the financial statements, you have to disclose the tax rate reconciliation. What does this mean? If your accounting profit is 1,000, if your accounting profit is 1,000 and the tax rate applicable to your company is 25%, in that cases, the tax expenditure should be is equal to 250 crores. If your profit is 1,000 crores, your tax expenditure should be 250 crores. So tax expenditure means your current tax as well as your deferred tax should be 250 crores. And if it is not 250 crores, what are such reconciling items due to which it is not 250 crores? So it might be incomes chargeable in the next years, expenditure not allowed as deduction, which will be allowed in the future years. There might be tax rate differences. So whenever you compute this tax rate reconciliation, even your mistakes might get identified. Where you should have recognized the deferred tax, but you didn't recognize. This tax rate reconciliation is a very important thing, but which has to be disclosed in the financial statements. So you have to reconcile it to the penny, you have to reconcile. You cannot say that rest is other items, I cannot identify what is the difference. If there are other items in your tax rate reconciliation, that means you have made a certain mistake in the computation of current tax or in the computation of deferred tax. Your tax rate reconciliation should tally to penny. Then, unrecognized deferred tax assets. So whatever are your unrecognized deferred tax assets should be recognized, should be disclosed in your financial statements. And your major components of tax should be disclosed in your financial statements. So if you recognize deferred tax liability, so the major components such as property, plant and equipment, your provision for gratuity, for on whichever components you have recognized the deferred tax, you should disclose it in your financial statements. So this is about the disclosures required. We'll just quickly have an overview of what is differences between Indian GAAP and Ind AS, and then we will open the lines for your questions. As we have discussed, whenever we were discussing each and every concept, the overall approach under this Ind AS is the balance sheet approach. That is why you compute the tax base of an asset and tax base of a liability. Then intra-group transactions, never deferred tax was recognized under Indian GAAP. Deferred tax on business combination was never done under Indian GAAP. Recognition of deferred tax asset under Indian GAAP, it has virtual certainty. Under Ind AS, it has probable. Then tax rate reconciliation was never required. Here you have to reconcile your tax rate. Unrecognized DTL so you have to also show what is the unrecognized component of DTL. Due to whatever scenario, if you have not recognized a DTL, you have to disclose it in the financial statements. Which will be those scenarios? These subsidiary scenarios what we discussed in the Excel sheet. So if on such scenarios you have not recognized a DTL, you have to disclose it in the financial statements. All right, these cases, the profits appearing in the CFS where it is a holding company and a subsidiary company, you have to disclose it in the CFS. And the investments, investment in associate, investment in joint venture, investment in subsidiary company, what we discussed as a special consideration, that also is different under Ind AS, which was not there under Indian GAAP. So I hope I have tried to simplify the standard, which is for which the special considerations are one which is difficult. But I hope whenever you practically apply, this would be of help to you, and will open the lines for the questions. I'll just try to read on your questions and resolve as many as possible.